Hi, my name is Luke McLay, and I will be discussing the expansion of online gambling and its economic consequences. Online gambling is more popular than it has ever been, but it didn't begin with apps like DraftKings. It began in the mid-1990s when a small Caribbean nation made a legal change that would quietly reshape global gambling. In 1994, the small Caribbean state of Antigua and Barbuda created a free trade zone which allowed U.S. bookmakers to accept bets over the phone on horse racing and sports while avoiding U.S. gambling laws. The next developments were new gambling softwares from the developer Microgaming mixed with encrypted communication protocols made by CryptoLogic in 1996, which ensured secure online money transactions. This was the final piece that allowed gambling to enter the online realm, growing revenues from the late 90s to 2000 from approximately $300 million to $2.2 billion. Transitioning to today, online casino betting is legal in 5 states, online sports betting with apps like FanDuel and DraftKings is legal in 39 states, and prediction market betting from Kalshi and Polymarket is legal in all 50 states. This wide range of access has generated revenues of $117.5 billion in 2025 and is expected to continue growing as legislation continues to allow more online gambling. The popularization of online gambling is largely related to combining the ease of use on mobile devices with the addictive nature of gambling. Noted in an article from the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, the integration of online gambling in the home can more easily turn gambling behavior into a component of a consumer's everyday life, like watching television. When online gambling becomes a routine daily behavior, it is easier for consumers to engage in mindless consumption of that activity, ultimately resulting in addiction and financial losses. The integration of personal devices into gambling removes multiple physical barriers that make participation less difficult. Unlike traditional casinos, which often require travel, time, and sometimes lodging, personal devices eliminate these constraints, turning gambling into a non-occasional event. The constant availability of betting apps, combined with instant deposits and normalization within the media, reinforces addictive patterns, making it difficult for users to stop. The National Council on Problem Gambling shows high-risk behavior is concentrated among specific groups. 15% of adults ages 18 to 34 reported concerning behavior compared to 2% of those 55 plus, highlighting dangers for young people. 24% of fantasy sports bettors and 17% of traditional sports bettors reported problematic behaviors, and 35% of individuals who gambled on 3+ activities weekly or more often met the threshold for concern. From an economic perspective, this means the industry's growth may rely disproportionately on individuals experiencing harmful gambling behaviors, raising ethical and long-term economic concerns. While all platforms require users to be 18 or older, American youths take advantage of various loopholes to access online betting before they are adults. The Child Mind Institute writes, kids may use someone else's ID or fake IDs, VPNs, or older friends and family members' accounts to bypass age restrictions. High school students with access to accounts from FanDuel can also act as bookies and take bets from other kids. These loopholes show how the safeguards are much weaker than they should be and make age restrictions on gambling sites become pointless and ineffective. This early exposure to gambling is distinctly concerning because teens are more prone to impulse and risk-taking behavior due to ongoing brain development. The addictive effects that hook adults have an even stronger impact on teenagers, creating harmful habits before they are able to develop better self-control. Repeated exposure to gambling at a young age increases the chance of long-term gambling addiction and its financial consequences. Since the mass legalization of sports betting and prediction markets betting on real-world events, there is now more pressure on athletes and people with insider information to use their positions of power to guarantee payouts. 2 examples of this are Emmanuel Clase and Jonte Porter. Emmanuel Clase is an MLB pitcher who was indicted in November 2025 for a gambling scheme that allegedly rigged specific pitches to help co-conspirators win over $400,000. While the investigation is still ongoing, Clase was placed on leave in July of 2025 and is still not returned to the MLB. Former NBA player Jonte Porter, who was facing large gambling debts, decided to share insider information with bettors, limiting his playing time and purposefully missing shots to ensure prop bets on him hitting his under. He pled guilty and received a lifetime ban from the NBA. Another recent example with prediction markets shows an odd bet won a trader more than $436,000 on Polymarket by appearing to anticipate former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's capture by U.S. forces, raising questions about the timing of the bet and the integrity of such online futures trading programs. This anonymous user placed the wager just hours before President Trump announced the capture. raising suspicion that the bettor may have had access to non-public information. Similar to illegal insider trading in financial markets, prediction markets and sports betting are also prone to insider advantages that erode fairness. Despite these concerns, proponents argue that online gambling generates substantial tax revenues for states, creates jobs in technology and gaming industries, and allows individuals the freedoms to make their own financial decisions. TaxFoundation.org shows that in 2023, online sports wagering generated roughly $1.85 billion in tax revenue, with the highest being in New York at $800 million and over $100 million in Pennsylvania, Illinois, and New Jersey. These tax dollars could be directed towards public programs like education and public infrastructure. Another argument is that regulated online platforms are safer than offshore or illegal markets, and prohibition doesn't actually stop gambling, but simply pushes the activity underground. While these benefits are real, they do not fully account for the economic and individual costs that accompany widespread online gambling access. As mentioned previously, the combination of the addictive nature of gambling and the ease of access on mobile platforms makes online gambling extremely addictive. Abuse of online gambling platforms can lead to long-term financial instability by pushing players into debt. This debt, mixed with gambling addiction, leads the gambler to put more money at risk, trying to at least break even. This is a very dangerous game that can lead to more debt, maxed out credit cards, pulling money from home equity, savings accounts, and even retirement accounts. If it gets worse, many are subject to property repossession and home foreclosure. Beyond financial instability, gambling addiction is strongly associated with serious health and social consequences. Like other behavioral addictions, it can strain personal relationships and contribute to family conflict. Research from the World Health Organization also shows higher rates of depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders among individuals experiencing gambling problems. In severe cases, gambling addiction has been linked to increased risk of suicidal ideation and even attempts. In addition to individual harms, research shows that gambling can produce broader economic consequences for communities in the larger economy. While legalized gambling generates employment, income, and tax revenue, it also imposes measurable costs. First, gambling losses reduce disposable income, directly lowering household consumption. Because consumption makes up a significant portion of GDP, sustained financial losses can create ripple effects throughout the broader economy. Second, problem gambling contributes to bankruptcy and unpaid debts. If widespread, these defaults can increase the overall cost of credit, rising borrowing costs for households and businesses. And finally, gambling-related financial distress has been associated with higher rates of crime. As indebted individuals attempt to recover losses or repay debts, public safety and criminal justice costs may rise, placing additional burdens on these communities. Measuring the net economic impact of problem gambling is very difficult, as both tangible and intangible costs are challenging to quantify. However, as gambling becomes increasingly normalized and accessible, the scale of these effects is likely to expand, amplifying long-term costs to individuals, households, and communities. Given these risks versus the positive economic benefit of tax revenue, the key policy question is not whether online gambling will exist, but how it should be regulated to minimize the harm while preserving economic benefits. First, stronger age verification systems are essential. Current identity checks are often minimal and easily bypassed. Effective verification methods potentially tied to government-issued identification systems could reduce underage access. Second, limiting gambling advertising, promotion, and sponsorships of sports could reduce normalization, particularly among younger audiences. As betting becomes embedded in sports culture, it shifts from an occasional activity to a constant presence. Third, product safety measures, such as mandatory loss limits, deposit caps, and maximum bet sizes, could reduce excessive gambling behavior. Just as other industries implement safety standards, gambling products should require structural safeguards. Fourth, states should clearly allocate a portion of gambling tax revenue towards addiction treatment, financial counseling, and prevention programs. Without designated funding, public systems may struggle to address rising harm. Finally, online platforms have a technological advantage over traditional casinos. They can track behavior in real time. Regulators could require automated systems that flag high-risk patterns and temporarily restrict accounts before losses escalate. While effective regulation does not eliminate gambling, it can help minimize some of the social costs and reduce long-term harm. As online gambling becomes increasingly legal and more popular, it is reasonable to say that it is likely not going anywhere. The question is not whether it will continue to grow, but whether its growth will be accompanied by sufficient safeguards. Without thoughtful regulation, the economic benefits may be overshadowed by rising social and financial costs. As access expands, policymakers must consider not only short-term tax revenue, but the broader, long-term consequences for individuals, families, and the economy as a whole. Thank you.